Give us Michael, give us Michael, give us Michael, give a smile. Give us Michael, give us Michael, be the reason someone smiles. Give us Michael, give us Michael, give us Michael, give a smile. Give us Michael, give us Michael, be the reason someone smiles. Give us Michael, give us Michael, give a smile. Give us Michael, give us Michael, be the reason someone smile. Give us Michael, give us Michael, give us Michael, give a smile. Give us Michael, give us Michael, be the reason someone smiles. Siva gedola, Leo Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo 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 desimcha. Be the reason someone smiles. 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 Siva gedola, Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo Leo desimcha. Siva gedola, Leo desimcha. Someone smile. The reason someone smile. The reason someone smile. The reason someone smile. The reason someone smile.
Breakfast with Elli.
Mode ani lefanecha melech chai vekayam shechezarta bi nishmati bechemla raba emunatecha.
The Maccabees of old, their story
Good morning, happy Hanukkah, and welcome to Breakfast with Ellie. It is Thursday, the 22nd day of December, the 21st day of Kislev, the 4th day of Hanukkah. The year is 5783, the year of Hakhel. The Torah portion is Mikeitz. HaYom, Yom, Chamishi, l'Shabbos, 5th day. Counting up towards Shabbos, we learn the 5th Aliyah and starting Rabbi Sachs's covenant and conversation. Happy Hanukkah, a good Yom Tov. How are you? All right, we got lots of stuff to do, so let's get started. Men and boys, take your two front sitzes. Let's do it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat tzitzit.
All right, al divrei Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah.
Hareini mekabel.
Hareini mekabel alai mitzvat aseh shel ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I take upon myself every single day to love my fellow friend in a very special way.
All right, Torah Tziva.
Ay Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha keilat Yaakov. Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha keilat Yaakov.
All right, time to give tzedakah. Are you ready?
I put it in the
Giving for today.
box. I put it in the
We're
push
giving
key
for
tzedakah
Hanukkah.
box. I put it in the push key for
We're
someone
giving for
else
this
to
to get
keep.
plus the labor, meaning
Yeah, I
suffering.
put it in the push key, the tzedakah box.
Kenya,
I put it in the
Bracha,
push key, the tzedakah box. I put it in the push key for someone else in need.
All right, and we are Erev Rosh Chodesh, right? Erev Rosh Chodesh. Hanukkah is coming up. All right. All right, very good. Tzedakah has been given. All right, time to say the Shema. Bashir. Cover your eyes with your right hand, please.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
All right, and now we have earned breakfast.
Hakhel Biederman, Biederman.
All right, I've got my latke macchiato over here. Yes, and my drink ready. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shahakol nihiyah bidvarei.
Coffee, blessed coffee. God bless you for being a friend. When the whole world turns on me, it's only you on which I can depend. I want to taste you in the morning and a few times throughout the day. Yes, a cup or two in the evening too. For me, it's the only way. Yeah.
All right, our daily reminder. Chananya! Our daily reminder. We started on something that's important. All right, today in Jewish history, on the 25th day of Kislev, The Maccabees liberated the Holy Temple in Jerusalem after defeating the vastly more numerous and powerful armies of the Syrian Greek king Antiochus IV. On the fourth day of Hanukkah, the Maccabees defeated. I said that. I'm sorry. The king had tried to forcibly uproot the beliefs and practices of Judaism, Yiddishkeit, from Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel. The victorious Jews repaired, cleansed, and rededicated the Holy Temple in Yerushalayim to the service of Hashem. On this day, 1,100 years earlier, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our Rebbe, and the Jewish people completed the construction of the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary that accompanied them during the 40 years of wandering in the desert. The Mishkan, however, was not dedicated for another 3 months. Our sages tell us that the day of 25 of Kislev was then compensated 12 centuries later when the miracle of CHANUKAH occurred in the Beis HaMikdash was rededicated. In commemoration of this, our sages instituted the 8-day festival of Hanukkah, on which lights are kindled nightly by Jews around the world to recall and publicize the miracle of the oil. Tonight, we light 5 candles. All right? Tonight, we light 5 candles. So there you have that. We also insert the Hallel and the Al-Hanisim, eat fried foods, played with a dreidel, and give Chanukah gelt. The customs of the Rebbe were to give Chanukah gelt on the 4th or 5th night. 5th night actually became the custom in Lubavitch. The 5th night and the 8th night of Chanukah is when we give Chanukah gelt. But the Rebbe said in these times we should give Chanukah gelt every night of Chanukah. We also want to make sure that we give Chanukah gelt to our children's teachers. It is very, very, very important that they get Chanukah gelt. All right? All right. What do I have for you? This is an unfortunate byproduct of things, and I'd like your opinion of this. Let me just get to the picture here and key it up over here. The New York Times is under fire for producing what is being called a Nazi crossword puzzle. Do you see this? It's a hidden message. People are very, very upset about it, and I can understand why. The New York Times faces backlash on the eve of Hanukkah. Now, that puzzle has an uncanny resemblance to a swastika. The Times, which in recent days has been publishing articles criticizing yeshivas and the Jewish schooling system, has come under serious fire against this. So I don't know. What do you think? Does it look like that to you? It sure looks like that to me. All right, I want that off my screen. All right. Sing for you. Oh, okay. That's very nice of you to ask me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Here is drone video. I have it someplace. I'll find it. All right. Here is drone video of Hanukkah at Chabad of Sutton Place.
It's dark outside, but it's light in here. Hanukkah, Hanukkah is here. It's dark outside, but it's light in here. Hanukkah, Hanukkah is here.
first night menorah lighting. Baruch atah Adonai Kitshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner CHANUKAH. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoseinu bayamim ha'eh bizman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'ki'imanu v'higiyanu lizman hazeh. Tiddy-ay, diddy-ay, 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 tiddy-ay, diddy-ay, tiddy-ay, diddy-ay, 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 tiddy-ay, ay-na-na-mam-mam, tiddy-ay, diddy-ay, 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 tiddy-ay, Haneiros, hallelu, Haneiros, hallelu, Haneiros, hallelu, hallelu, Haneiros, hallelu, Anu madlikin al hachuos. Bum, 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 tiddy dum, bum, 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 tiddy dum. Haneiros halalu. Anu madlikin al hachuos ve'al hanislim ve'al hanifloos. Sheyosisa lavoseinu. Sheyosisa lavoseinu. Bayamim moem bizman hazeh. Bayamim moem bizman hazeh. Bizman hazeh. Al yedei kayanecha hakedoshim, 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 hakedoshim. Shmeinas yemei CHANUKAH neros halalu koydeshem. Chol shmeinas yemei CHANUKAH neros halalu koydeshem. Chol shmeinas yemei CHANUKAH neros halalu koydeshem. Koydeshem, 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 koydeshem. Ve'ein lanu reshus lehishtamesh bohem, lehishtamesh bohem, lehishtamesh bohem. V'chol shmeinas yemei CHANUKAH neros halalu koydeshem. Chol shmeinas yemei CHANUKAH neros halalu koydeshem. Ein lanu reshus lehishtamesh bohem. Reisa kedei
L'haida Yisrael Hallel, L'haida Yisrael Hallel, L'shimcho HaGadol, L'haida Yisrael Hallel, L'haida Yisrael Hallel, L'shimcho HaGadol, Al Nisecha ve'al Nifleisecha ve'al Al Nisecha ve'al Nifleisecha ve'al Yeshua Secha Vayayay Al Nisecha ve'al Nifleisecha ve'al Yeshua Secha Vay Al Nisecha ve'al Nifleisecha ve'al Yeshua Secha Fregen Chanukah.
Sorry about that. Bit off and slow. Very, very strange. I'll have to figure out why it is doing that. All right. HaYom Yom for today, the 28th day of Kislev.
Today's HaYom Yom presents Chanukah-related customs. The third Rebbe of Chabad, the Tzemach Tzedek, would hold a sort of Farbrengen gathering on one of the evenings of Chanukah for the family. His sons and daughters-in-law were invited. This was called a Latkes evening. The first and second Rebbes of Chabad held similar parties in their times as well. Among the stories that the Rebbes would recount at these gatherings were traditional stories that were repeated from one year to the next. The fifth Rebbe of Chabad would give Chanukah gelt on the fourth or fifth night of Chanukah. The idea of Chanukah gifts wrapped in wrapping paper and bows is okay, but I have a hunch that that's a spin-off from a non-Jewish holiday celebrated this time of year. An authentically Jewish custom is Chanukah gelt. The Rebbe very much encouraged parents to give Chanukah gelt, not the chocolate stuff, real coins or money to their kids during the holiday of Chanukah.
All right. Chanukah.
There's only one way to spell Hanukkah. It's not any of these. It's this.
All right, fantastic. Let's start with Rabbi Avi Weisenfeld.
At the end of World War II, a young Jewish soldier in the US Army found himself marching through Western Europe, liberating towns and villages that were in German control. At one point, Winiger's unit was assigned to a small German village with orders to secure the town, search for any hiding Nazis, and help the villagers in any way that they could possibly need. One night, out on patrol, Winiger saw a slim figure running through the field just outside the village. He gave chase and shouted, "Stop, or I'll shoot." The figure ducked behind a tree. Winiger waited, and eventually the figure came out and looked around to see if he was still being pursued. Figuring that the soldier was no longer nearby, he went to a spot near a large tree and started to dig. Winiger waited until the figure had finished digging and removed an object from the ditch. Then he was once more on the move. Winiger stepped out from a nearby patch and said, "Stop, or I'll shoot." The figure ran. Winiger decided not to shoot, but rather to try and catch the figure. He soon caught in his hand. The menorah fell to the ground, and Winiger picked up the menorah. The boy tried to grab it back, shouting, "Give it back to me, it's mine." Winiger assured the boy, "Don't worry, I'm one of your friends. Furthermore, I'm actually Jewish as well." This boy, who had just survived several years of the Holocaust, had been in a concentration camp and he had been forced to watch the shooting of his father, and he had no idea whatever had become of his mother. Winiger calmed down the boy, brought him back to his barrack, and in the weeks that followed, he took the young boy, whose names were David, under his wing. As they became closer and closer, Winiger's heart went out to the young boy. He had lost everything in the war and needed a stable home in which to grow up. The soldier offered David the opportunity to come back with him to New York after his duty was finished, and David gladly accepted. Winiger went through the necessary paperwork and eventually adopted David. After the war, Winiger settled down and became an active member of the New York Jewish community, and one of his acquaintances was actually working in the Jewish Museum, and he took a look one day at David's menorah and he said, "This is gorgeous. This has to be for everyone. It's worth a fortune." And he offered David $50,000 for the menorah. David refused. Generous offer, but he said, "No. This menorah has been in my family for over 200 years. There's no amount of money that would ever make him sell it." That year, when Chanukah came, David and his newly adopted father lit the menorah in the window of their home in New York City. The candles burned bright, and for David it was a memory of his family and everything they represented of happier times. They watched the menorah burn. Eventually David went to his room. Winiger remained by the candles. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Winiger went to answer it, and standing by the door, he found a woman with a very strong German accent who said she was walking down the street and she saw this menorah in the window. She said, "We once had a menorah just like that in our family, and she had never seen anything like it. Could she take a closer look?" Winiger invited her inside and said that the menorah belonged to his adopted son, and perhaps he could come downstairs and tell her more about it. Winiger went upstairs and called David from his room to talk to the woman. David walked down the steps, stopped, and screamed, "Mama!" And he couldn't believe it. He ran into her arms. The mother that he had no idea anything about was standing in front of him. They embraced. The menorah represented that incredible time when they reunited. When it comes to the Yom Tov of Chanukah, what an opportunity, what warmth we see within the candles. But more than that, it represents that we reunite. We reunite with our Creator. We connect back with the Rabbeinu Shalom. We light the candle within the darkness, in the midst of the winter, and we say, "Rabbeinu Shalom, we're looking for your connection." We remember the Nissim. We remember the tremendous miracles that you gave to us. And now we want that connection. We want that warmth. We want to be embraced once again by the Rabbeinu Shalom. A freilichen Chanukah.
To listen to more by Rabbi Avi Wiesenfeld, visit
Yeah. All right. I'm kind of speechless on that one. All right. Rabbi Jacobson's message for today.
Tonight we will do a short meditation around the Chanukah menorah. So I invite you to sit comfortably in your chair. Feel the support of your chair holding you up. Feel your feet supported by the ground. I invite you to close your eyes. And in the presence of the Chanukah flames, give yourself permission to relax. Take a few deep breaths. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. gently notice the sensations in your body, all of them, and send some oxygen towards them. Give them a little gentle love and validation, and breathe into them. Now open your eyes. Look at the glowing flames of your menorah. Notice the dance, the sway, the constant movement. Notice the serenity, the calmness, the colors, the beauty, the pristine purity, the radiance, and the light. These glowing flames are a physical approximation of your soul. As Proverbs says, the soul of a human being is a divine flame. Like the flame, your soul is pure. It's on fire, and it always dances. It is serene, wholesome, calm, colorful, creative, beautiful, pure, bright, passionate, and it's full of light. Yes, you may also be noticing other internal voices telling you something different about yourself and your life, painting a different picture on the canvas of your brain. You don't have to get rid of these voices and feelings. You can notice them, observe them, make space for them, have compassion for them, even cuddle them, and send them a little love. But know that these voices do not capture your entire truth. Your flame, my flame, is absolutely pure, innocent, and wholesome. No experience in the world, no pain in life, no abuse you endured can extinguish its light, creativity, curiosity, and joy. Watch the glowing flames and listen carefully. They are telling a story. The story of your inner flame, whose light is infinite and eternal. I invite you to close your eyes again and take a few deep breaths. Inhale and exhale. Now imagine your child, each one of your children, when he or she was born. Can you recall the angelic face, the innocence, the purity, the glow? Can you remember the smile, the smell, the radiance, the beauty, and the holiness of that child? Can you recall the light you saw in the eyes of that child after he or she was born? And now open your eyes, gaze at the flame, and look at your child the way he or she is today. He is much older. She is much older. But can you still see the glow in their eyes, the flame in their hearts, the purity in their souls, the brightness inside their spirits? Yes, that same flame of so many years ago is still burning brightly. Notice it and embrace it. Happy Chanukah.
All right. That was kind of incredible and beautiful. Tonight is the fifth night of Hanukkah, and it is customary in many circles to give Hanukkah gelt. Here are 8 lights that we learn from the Hanukkah gelt. In addition to other reasons, we give Hanukkah gelt because it's an authentic custom practiced by our Rebbes, which means that it has the power of a minhag Yisrael, a custom for the Jewish people, and therefore is part of Torah. Furthermore, being that this practice was shared with the public, it has the authenticity of Divrei Chachamim, the words of our sages, and by fulfilling it, we connect with our ancestral sages. Now, Hanukkah gelt should be given to sons and daughters before marriage, after marriage. The Rebbe would always cite the example of the previous Rebbe who gave Hanukkah gelt to his adult daughters and son-in-laws. It's also given to grandchildren, although they already received from their parents. In addition to the parents, other members of the family should also give Hanukkah gelt. At least once, the Rebbe said that children should give amongst themselves as well. And the Rebbe himself would give Hanukkah gelt to the children during Hanukkah rallies, encouraged others to give children Hanukkah gelt at all gatherings. And as many of you know, many of the Chabad Hanukkah celebrations have a Hanukkah gelt drop. That's right, where they drop it from a helicopter or a big crane. I know, isn't that cool? Mostly that is chocolate gelt, so that you don't have to worry that the money is going to go to waste. In the HaYom, the Rebbe writes that the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, would give Hanukkah gelt on the 4th or 5th night of Hanukkah. Then, in the year 5748, the Rebbe encouraged that Hanukkah gelt should be given every night of Hanukkah. The reason that the Rebbe's only gave once was it should retain its novelty and wouldn't become routine. But the Rebbe said, because the darkness of Galut, our exile, is so great, and it has dampened the importance of education, we should now give Hanukkah gelt every night in order to teach the children, much like Pesach, to make them ask why are they getting Hanukkah gelt. Now, in latter years, the Rebbe would gather the children for rallies, during which he would give the chaperones Hanukkah gelt to distribute to the children. It was always coins. And during one of the Hanukkah rallies, the Rebbe gave fascinating insight into this practice. The Rebbe pointed out that by nature, children value coins more than paper money. And he said this is a reflection on our Torah. The Rebbe explained that in order to make a halachic transaction like a marriage, one can only use coins, which have an inherent value, not paper money, which is really only a note from a treasury promising that it is backed by something. The coin itself has value, and we will continue with this tomorrow. All right? Now, why is Hanukkah not just another holiday?
The Jewish comedian Alan King once said that you can sum up all Jewish festivals in one sentence. They tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. The truth is that this is an appropriate summary of all Jewish festivals except for Hanukkah, which is best summarized by, they tried to Hellenize us, we survived, let's pray. You see, unlike Pharaoh, Haman, and Hitler, may their names be erased, the ancient Assyrian Greeks didn't try to annihilate the Jewish body, but its spirit and soul. They didn't seek to eradicate the physical existence of the Jewish people, but their spiritual identity, faith, and heritage. For example, they forbade the study of Torah, the practice of Shabbat and Brit Milah or circumcision, among other foundational Jewish practices. And hence, simply a festival which celebrates the Jewish people's stubborn ability to withstand the pressure from without and within to join the melting pot of history and to assimilate into the wider societies in which they lived. And this explains why, unlike most Jewish festivals, which are celebrated physically through feasting and special foods, Hanukkah is celebrated in a more spiritual way, through rites like lighting the menorah and reciting a prayer of thanks called Hallel. Now, while we do eat certain Hanukkah foods like donuts and latkes, those were not part of the original tenets of Hanukkah, but are customs which have developed later in history. In essence, then, the story and the message of Hanukkah has become more relevant over time, as Jewish people around the world benefit from greater freedoms and opportunities than ever before. So as we gather around the candles this year, let's internalize the stories they tell about the courageous Maccabean spirit of old. And as we sing songs of faith and thanks, let's remember that we are only here to tell our story because of those who came before us, whose Herculean sacrifices are too many to count and too difficult to recount. And let's remember that in the end, it is our stubborn commitment to faith and tradition, no matter how out of style or step it might be, that explains why we are still here, while so many others have vanished into the shadows of history. Just as poetry was famously defined in the 20th century as news that stays news, Jewish history is defined by Jews who stayed Jews. Cecil Roth put it best in his book, A History of the Jews, and I quote, "Throughout our history, there have been weaker elements who have shirked the sacrifices which Judaism entailed. They have been swallowed long since in the great majority. Only the more stalwart have carried on the traditions of their ancestors and can now look back with pride upon their superb heritage. Are we to be numbered with the weak majority or with the stalwart minority? It is for us to decide." So here's to making good choices whose positive effects will reverberate and pave the way for your family's Jewish future. And here's to wishing you and yours a very happy and meaningful Hanukkah.
If you like that video, hit the subscribe button and notification bell below for hours of the best Jewish content.
All right. And now let's end today with Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory.
Back in 1991, I lit Hanukkah candles with Mikhail Gorbachev, who had, until earlier that year, been president of the Soviet Union. For 70 years, the practice of Judaism had been effectively banned in communist Russia. It was one of the two great assaults on our people and faith in the 20th century. The Germans sought to kill Jews. The Russians tried to kill Judaism. Under Stalin, the assault became brutal. Then in 1967, after Israel's victory in the Six-Day War, many Soviet Jews sought to leave Russia and go to Israel. Not only was permission refused, but often the Jews concerned lost their jobs and were imprisoned. Around the world, Jews campaigned for the prisoners, refuseniks as they were called, to be released and allowed to leave. Eventually, Mikhail Gorbachev realized that the whole Soviet system was unworkable. Communism had brought not freedom and equality, but repression, a police state, and a new hierarchy of power. In the end, it collapsed, and Jews regained the freedom to practice Judaism and to go to Israel. That day in 1991, after we'd lit candles together, Mr. Gorbachev asked me through his interpreter what we'd just done. I told him that 22 centuries ago, in Israel, the public practice of Judaism had been banned, and Jews fought for and won their freedom. And the lights of Hanukkah were the symbol of that victory. And I continued, 70 years ago, Jews suffered the same loss of freedom in Russia, and you, Mr. Gorbachev, have now helped them to regain it. So you too have become part of the Hanukkah story. And as the translator translated my reply into Russian, Mikhail Gorbachev blushed. The Hanukkah story still lives, still inspires, telling us, not just us, but the world, that though tyranny exists, freedom, with God's help, will always win the final battle. Happy Hanukkah. Hanukkah Sameach.
All right. There you have it. Some severe weather news. The New York City Emergency Management System has issued a travel advisory ahead of a winter storm that's in the forecast. Travel advisory goes from Thursday afternoon, that's today, through Friday, as an intense storm is expected to bring heavy rain, strong winds, coastal flooding, cold temperatures, and possible flash freezes to the New York City area from Thursday afternoon into the weekend. Shop for Shabbos today. Heavy rain, in addition to high tide, will also bring moderate to major coastal flooding. Urge coastal residents to take steps to protect their property against the ahead of Friday morning's high tide. Now, a rain in New York City is going to arrive around noon, with periods of heavy rainfall likely tonight into overnight. It will continue at times until Friday afternoon. A total of 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rain is expected. The neighborhoods at highest risk are Hamilton and Howard Beaches, Broad Channel, and the Rockaways, according to New York City Emergency Management. Coastal flood watches are in effect for Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m., and for the Bronx and northern Queens from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Widespread minor to locally moderate coastal flooding with up to 2 feet of above-ground inundation will be possible, officials have said. So let's be careful out there, all right? And now, a word from our sponsors. PestProRidall.com.
PestProRidall.com. Trusted by the best to keep away the pests. We are offering COVID-19 disinfection services. Mention this ad and get 1 month free service. Visit us at PestProRidall.com.
Tarzan Group, micro, miniature, and small orchids. Go to tarzangroup.com or call Tomas at 305-440-0565. That's 305-440-0565 and order today. Visit Tomas and Yair at tarzangroup.com. Micro, miniature, and small orchids, beautiful in your home. Go to the website and read Tomas's orchid blog. And by Dina D Design. DinaDDesign@gmail.com. Fine artwork, custom made to your specifications. Logos, wall hangings, Judaica. And you can even have something for your child's room. Dina D Designs. Go to her Facebook or Instagram or call or text. Thank you very much to our sponsors. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please go right up here to where it says patreon.com/theactorsrabbi, and you can contribute even only $1 a month if you'd like, but that'll help us bring this broadcast to you on a daily basis and cover our expenses. Be sure to thank your sponsors when shopping and mention Breakfast with Elli when you're shopping there. There might be discounts. Thanks for watching.
Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe.
All right, thank you so much. Go to patreon.com/theactorsrabbi or breakfastwithelli.live/tipjar if you would like to participate in bringing Torah all around the world. That's right, that's what we do here. We bring Torah all around the world. Absolutely amazing. 4 years now. Rabbi Sachs would like to talk to you about this week's Parsha.
There's been massive debate in Anglo-Jewry in the past few weeks as to whether we should take a unified stance in our support of the State of Israel or whether we should openly air our differences. It's been a noisy debate, a shrill debate, but it's the wrong debate, and it's deflecting us from the real issue. And if we seek it, we'll find it in this week's parashah. Listen to these words that are among the most fateful and reverberating in all of Jewish history. Vayakeh Yosef et Achav, vehem lo hikiruhu. Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. Now, the Torah is a deep book, and we make a great mistake if we think we can understand it on one superficial level. On the surface, the story is simple. Envious of him, Joseph's brothers initially plan to kill him. Eventually, they sell him into slavery. He's taken into Egypt, and through a series of vicissitudes, he becomes prime minister, second only in rank and power to Pharaoh. It's now many years later. The brothers have come to Egypt to buy food. They come before Joseph, but he no longer looks like the man they knew many years before. Then he was a 17-year-old called Joseph. Now he's 39, an Egyptian ruler called Tzofnas Paneach, dressed in official robes with a gold chain round his neck, who speaks Egyptian and uses an interpreter to communicate with these visitors from the land of Canaan. No wonder they didn't recognize him, even though he recognized them. But that is only the surface meaning. Deep down, the book of Bereshit is exploring the most profound source of all human conflict. Freud thought the great symbol of conflict was Laius and Oedipus, the tension between fathers and sons. Bereshit thinks otherwise. The root of human conflict is sibling rivalry. Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, and now Joseph and his brothers. Joseph has the misfortune of being the youngest. He symbolizes the Jewish condition. His brothers are bigger and stronger than he is. They resent his presence. They see him as a troublemaker. The fact that their father loves him only makes them angrier and more resentful. They want to kill him. In the end, they get rid of him in a way that allows them to feel a little less guilty. They concoct a story that they tell their father, and then they can settle down to life again. They can relax. There is no Joseph to disturb their peace anymore. And now they're facing a stranger in a strange land, and it simply doesn't occur to them that this man may be Joseph. As far as they're concerned, there is no Joseph. They don't recognize him now. They never did. They never recognized him as one of them, as their father's child, as their brother with an identity of his own and a right to be himself. Joseph is the Jewish people throughout history. Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Judaism was the world's first monotheism, but not.
And we're going to stop today. We're going to stop there today, and we'll complete that tomorrow, God willing. I know, it's very interesting, and you want to continue, but we have to get to other things today. In the fifth Aliyah, on the third day, Yosef released all of his brothers except Shimon, who he held hostage. He bid the rest of the brothers to return to Canaan and return with their youngest brother, Biederman, and thus establish their innocence. The brothers recognized that this was punishment for the sale of Yosef and expressed regret for their deed. Yosef instructed his servants to place the monies that the brother had paid for the food in the sacks of grain that they were given. The brothers arrived back in the land of Canaan and recounted the entire episode to Yaakov, who was highly disturbed by this happening and initially refused to send Biederman, unwilling to consider the possibility of losing Rachel's only remaining son. Eventually, though, after their food provisions ran low, Yehuda personally guaranteed Biederman's safe return. Yaakov acceded to send him. He then sent them to Egypt with a prayer on his lips and armed with a gift for the Egyptian ruler. Shnayim Yomi.
Parshas Mikeitz, Chamishi. The brothers are standing before Yosef, and they want to go home with the food, but they know that Yosef says, I'm not going to let you back until you bring your little brother Benji with you. And they say to each other, wow, it's our fault, because all those years ago, we didn't take any pity on our little brother Yosef when we threw him in the pit, and he was crying and begging to go home to dad, and now, because of that, these horrible things are happening to us. And Yosef hears this, and he understands them, but they don't know he understands them. They think he's some Egyptian guy. He probably doesn't speak Lashon HaKodesh. He doesn't speak Hebrew, but he hears them, and he goes and cries. It rips him apart. He comes back and says, listen, I'm going to keep one of you here as collateral. The rest of you go home, and you're not getting any more food until you bring your little brother Biederman. Until I see him, no food for you. He takes Shimon away from them, because Shimon and Levi, if you leave them together, are very, very dangerous. And if you don't believe me, just ask the city of Shechem, alav shalom. They go home to their father, Yaakov, and Yaakov's like, where's Shimon? Where's Shimon? And they say, well, Dad, actually, the guy who's in charge of the land said terrible things to us, and he accused us of being spies, and he took Shimon away, and he said we can't have any food unless we bring Biederman with us. And Yaakov gets furious and says, why have you done this to me? You guys ruin everything. First, I send Yosef to you, and now he disappears. And now you go with Shimon, and Shimon disappears. You want me to send Benji with you? Aliyah kulana. You're taking away all of my children. Reuven, the eldest, says to his father, Dad, I'll take responsibility. And if I don't bring back Biederman, you can kill my 2 sons. And Yaakov's like, why would I want to kill his sons? They're also my sons. So he doesn't listen to him. Then Yehuda speaks up. And Yehuda says, Dad, I'll take responsibility for Biederman. Mi'adi tivakshenu. I will stand him here in front of you. If I don't bring him and stand him up in front of you, I will have sinned to my father all the days. And the Gemara says, what's all the days? Olam hazeh and olam haba. And Yaakov accepts Yehuda's suggestion and sends Biederman with him. And I'd like to leave you with a very simple question. Reuven says, if I don't bring back Biederman, you can kill my sons. And Yaakov's like, that's a terrible idea. Why would I want to kill your sons? That doesn't help me. But when Yehuda says, if I don't bring him back, I'll lose all my olam haba, all my world to come, Yaakov's like, that sounds pretty reasonable. Why is he more at ease with that than he was with Reuven's suggestion? See you tomorrow for Shishi.
All right. Fantastic. Let us now go to the holy city of Hebron.
I heard a great story from a friend. The mother of a friend of his was celebrating a milestone birthday. I don't know what number, maybe 70, out in Los Angeles. This Many people have the custom when they make Kiddush on Shabbos to hold the cup on their palm, sometimes flat, sometimes with their fingers around the bottom of the cup, but the cup rests.
Hold on 1 second here. I got the wrong one in there, and I'm going to put the right one in. So just give me 1 second to fix this. All right, here we go.
I heard a great
We read about the tragedy of Yosef and his brothers, the jealousy, and all the animosity between Yosef and his brothers. Eventually, we know Yosef was sold to Mitzrayim, originally thrown into a pit with snakes and scorpions. And Yosef went through so much suffering on the hand of his brothers. The pasuk tells us, "Vayed Yehuda meitechav." Yehuda went down from his brothers, and there the rabbis teach us that at a certain point, everyone was falling apart. Yaakov was crying and mourning with sackcloth, fasting because he missed his son Yosef. Reuven felt guilty as a bechor, he wasn't able to save his brother. All the Shvatim were fasting and crying. Yosef feels betrayed. He's in Egypt, in a foreign country, away from Eretz Yisrael. Yehuda goes down, and what does he do? He goes and gets married. At first glance, it seems to be Yehuda is completely insensitive to all that's going on. But the great tzaddikim teach us Yehuda was bringing the light of Mashiach, the light of Peretz and Zerach, the light of the great Gula. A lot of times in life when we make a mistake, we give up in despair, and everyone thought that the future was lost. Yehuda came and he got married, he started to build a bright future. And CHANUKAH was standing overlooking the Har Bayit. It was a point of history where everything looked as if it was over. The Greeks had defiled our souls, defiled the Holy Temple. But there, CHANUKAH teaches us, Dafka at night, when the winter nights are the longest, at the end of the month, Chafei Kislev, it's a time for you not to give up, time for you to know that this is the time when it's such darkness, the Choshech HaDiavanim, we could find that ray of light, we could build a new beautiful future with the dedication of the Mizbeach. We should be privileged as CHANUKAH in our own life. Everyone's about to give up in despair. Remember the miracle of CHANUKAH, Chashucha v'adanora, darkness in the night. We should be privileged to light this CHANUKAH, the great menorah Ozeg Moa B'Shem Mizmoach, Chanukah Tamizbeach, to see that great song, the dedication of the Mizbeach. Shabbat Shalom, Chanukah Sameach.
All right, sorry about that mix-up. All right, now we are going to go to Harry.
I heard a great story from a friend. The mother of a friend of his was celebrating a milestone birthday. I don't know what number, maybe 70, out in Los Angeles. This fellow lives in New York. Calls his mother about a month before the big bash that's planned for a restaurant with friends and relatives in LA. And he says, Mom, I feel terrible. I tried to get away from work. I just can't. I'm not going to be able to make it to your birthday party. She says, I understand. You have to work. I love you anyway. Fast forward a month. It's the day of the birthday. And of course, he flies to LA. He gets to the restaurant an hour early, tells them his plan, and they say, all right, we're going to help you with this. They give him a waiter's uniform and a pad, and his mother arrives at the restaurant an hour later. He calls her from the kitchen. He says, Mom, I just wanted to apologize again. I feel so bad. I'm not going to be able to make it. Are you at the restaurant yet? She says, yes, we're all here. He says, send regards to everybody. I'm sorry again. Happy birthday. She says, it's okay. I understand. He hangs up and then walks into the restaurant with his pad in hand and his waiter's uniform, and he's taking everybody's order at her table, including her own. Not a flicker of recognition. Somebody says to her, you know, the waiter looks like your son. She looks and says, yeah, he does. Somebody else says, you know, why don't you take a picture with him? So she says, okay, and takes a picture with him. No recognition until finally he leans in and says, Mom, happy birthday. And she just can't believe it. She can't understand. Wait, but you just called me from New York and said you can't make it. He says, no, I called you from the kitchen. I was kidding around. Here I am. Which brings us, of course, to this week's Parsha, because that's what's going on. The brothers make it down to Egypt. Yosef, who's now the prime minister, immediately recognizes them, the guys who sold him all those years ago. They don't recognize him at all, even though they've got all the clues. The commentators say they didn't recognize him because he didn't have a beard when they sold him. Now he does. Yeah, but the commentators also explain that Yosef looked exactly like their father. So now they're looking at a bearded, younger version of their father. And there's much more. They just came to buy food, and he's asking them all these ridiculous questions. Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? Then he insists that they bring their younger brother down to Egypt, the younger brother who happens to be his only full brother. When they get back to home, their father says to them, why did you give them all this information about the family? And they say, Dad, you didn't understand, according to the commentators. He knew everything about us. He even knew the type of wood that was used in our childhood cribs. Guys, maybe consider the possibility that he knew all this about you and was asking those family-related questions because he's Yosef, the guy you sold, the guy who had dreams that he was going to be the leader. Dreams that you were going to bow down to him, like you just did. But they couldn't bring themselves to recognize what was right in front of them. They couldn't connect the dots because psychologically, they couldn't recognize the enormity of the mistake they had made when they sold him. And we make the same mistake. We put ourselves in a box, and we just can't recognize mistakes that we made. Can't be honest with ourselves. And we can't recognize the gains that we can make. We don't realize what we're capable of. And we do the same thing with our family members and with our friends. Oh, we know them. They're not capable of more. They are what they are. Let them surprise you. Let yourself surprise you. And what better time than at Hanukkah, when we're lighting the menorah, remembering those miracles with our friends, with our family members. Don't box yourself in. You're capable of more. We're all capable of more. Don't box them in. Let them surprise you. They're also capable of more. We are limited only by our imaginations. Let's dream bigger. Happy Hanukkah.
All right. All right, fantastic. Let us go now to the name of it. You know what? Let's do Rabbi Label Wolf. Nice and calming for the moment.
This week's parasha, Mikeitz, coincides with Chanukah. The word Mikeitz means at the end of, but the word kates alone often refers to the end of days or the end of the period of normalcy as we understand it through natural means, and then Moshiach comes and teleports us into a much higher realm. So there comes a time when things will change from end to end. This is symbolized in the 8th candle of Chanukah. 7 is the number of the natural order, 7 days of the week. The number 8 means going beyond the natural form, going beyond nature. So for example, King David's harp consisted of 7 strings. Moshiach's harp will consist of 8 strings. So at this moment, during Chanukah, as we're approaching the 8th day, we should have a sense of a far better future than the one that we seem to be living now. One where we're teleported beyond nature and able to live a life of purity, of insight and knowledge. Look forward to it. That's what Chanukah is all about, to be able to dream the perfect dream of our future.
Wow, that's beautiful. All right, moving on to Tehillim. All right, we are saying chapter 121 as we do every day. Let's do it together. All right, Tanya in 5, thought for the day.
Tanya thoughts for the 28th day of Kislev. When we invest our skills in Torah and mitzvah actions, we actually reach a more profound closeness with God. The mitzvah acts are more than mere behavior modifiers, busy work to keep us from destroying the world. They are the objective of creation. So when acted upon, one in fact aligns himself with God himself. Although he may not understand why this particular behavior will bring him a unity with God, he should know that since God created him and asked him to do it, that in and of itself will effectuate the bond when
you're in a relationship, the main thing is how you behave. But that's... We continue in Tanya. We're middle of chapter 4 of Tanya. Yesterday, we introduced the garments of the soul. The garments are the expressions of the soul, which are thought, speech, and action. And towards the end of yesterday's segment, we mentioned that in today's Tanya, we're going to be talking about a certain advantage that the garments of the soul, the expressions of the soul, have over the core components of the soul itself. And what is that? So to introduce that, let's talk for a second about a famous saying, is the thought that counts. Is that really true? Is it really the thought that counts? Or is the main thing what a person does? So let's use an example. So let's say you have one day, there's a woman, she decides that she wants to really treat her husband well, and she makes a delicious 4-course dinner for her husband. Husband comes home from work, sits down for the meal, delicious meal. It's also set with the finest china. And when the meal is finished, husband turns to wife and says, you know, that was a good meal, but the meat was missing some salt. So, you know, it didn't really count. You could try again another day, though. Now, obviously, this guy is an idiot. And why? Because it is the thought that matters. At the end of the day, the whole supper, the whole dinner, was an expression of the love. It's the love that matters. And the greatness and the importance of the action is only in as much as it is a way of expressing the feelings and the relationship. So it's the thought that matters. And that's why, in terms of our relationship with God, there are many people who are confused about this. And they say, why is Yiddishkeit, why is Judaism so obsessed with the deed? Isn't it the thought that matters? You know, I have a relationship with God in my heart. I love him. I respect him. And whichever way it expresses itself is not so important, because the expressions, the thought, speech, and action are not as important as the actual relationship itself at the very core. But in today's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that what is true in a relationship between two human beings is not true when it comes to our relationship with God. And the reason why is because God is not a human being. God is infinite and we are finite. And the notion that we can have a relationship with him on our terms, I'll just
computer decided to have a mind of its own. I don't know why it did that, but let's move on to Tanya in 5 with Rabbi Fine.
Thank you for joining Tanya in 5. Today's lesson for the 28th of Kislev. We continue in chapter 4. Chapter 4 in one word is garments, levushim. We're speaking about the expression of the soul, and the soul expresses itself with what we call garments of expression. And these garments are thought, speech, and action that the divine soul, which we're speaking of now, clothes itself in these modes of expression. Now, although we call them garments, which would suggest that they are lesser than the person themselves or the soul of the person, nevertheless, they are infinitely higher and greater than the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, the 3 levels of the soul that are integrated in a person. They are greater than the soul themselves, which this is obviously a great novel idea that is based on the Zohar. And the reason for that is because Torah and God are totally one, as opposed to the soul when it's in a body. A soul when it's a body, it's not totally one with God. There is a sense of being to the soul, that it is a created, now it's a part of a created being. It's a holy one, but nonetheless, and it is separate in a sense, and therefore it needs the Torah and mitzvahs that are totally one with God. And as we explained, that the Torah, God's wisdom, God is the knower, he is the knowledge, explained in chapter 2, and therefore totally one with God. And hence, through that is the way that we can become one with God too, through his Torah and mitzvahs. Now, although God is Ein Sof, and his greatness is something that we cannot fathom, we cannot apprehend him, being that he and his will are one, he and his wisdom are one, and therefore there's no searching of his understanding, for his thoughts are not our thoughts. So how is it possible that we can comprehend Torah? Because remember, we're speaking about that now through the thought and speech of the study of Torah. We have God himself, and which is greater than what the soul has of its own making. So nevertheless, we are able to comprehend God that is way beyond that. And how is that? Because where God's greatness is, that's where you will find his humility. What does that mean? It means to say that God took his will and wisdom and compressed it into 613 mitzvahs of the Torah and their laws, and also within the letters of the Torah, of the 24 holy books of the Torah, God, as it were, compressed it. And all of this, why did he do it? In order that each one of us, our soul in a human body, should be able to comprehend the thoughts of the teachings of the Torah in our faculty of thought, in our understanding, and to fulfill them in actual in speech and deed. Meaning that it's clothed in our faculty, it's clothing itself in the 10 faculties in these 3 garments of expression. Therefore, the metaphor to understand this would not be like a teacher who teaches a student, who the teacher has a great luminary within their mind and gives them but a ray of light in the teachings. But no, Torah is compared to water. Just as water is on top of the mountain, when it comes to a lower level, it's still the same Torah. And that's why when we make the blessing over the Torah, we say, Asher nasan lanu Torah. So he gave us his Torah. Meaning, the way it's on high is the way we have it on low, which is not, again, the way a teacher would teach a student. Being that his will and wisdom are one, what he did was he compressed it, as it were, figuratively speaking, into the physical reality of this world, because all the Torah mitzvahs are, for the most part, enclosed in a physical thing in this world, like tefillin in a physical box and the like. And when we now comprehend it with our minds, what we are comprehending and apprehending with our minds, with our speech as we're speaking the words of Torah, and when we're doing mitzvahs in action, what we have is God himself as a result. The way he contracted or compressed himself into the Torah teachings, into the mitzvahs themselves, and hence that way we have a clear understanding why it's necessary to have the Torah mitzvahs, because through that we have God himself, as opposed to the soul itself. Even though it's a godly soul that is a part of God literally, nonetheless it's a created being, and therefore doesn't have on its own, in its own love and awe, by its own nature, have the oneness, total oneness with God. And that's Tanya in 5 for chapter 4. Thank you for joining.
All right. Sefer HaMitzvahs of the Rambam. We are up to class number 208.
Just study Rambam each and every day. I'll never miss my daily Rambam. My episode.
Yesterday, in discussing positive mitzvah number 96, that a nevela is impure and transmits impurity, a nevela we defined as any carcass of an animal which has died or was killed in a way other than kosher slaughter, we talked about the way of becoming impure from it by touching. There's also another way to become impure from a nevela, and that is by carrying it, even if one did not touch it. Say, for example, it's in a bag, and he put the bag on his shoulder. And also, under very specific conditions, if it's a kosher bird's nevela, the nevela could also make a person impure simply by swallowing it, which means if a person didn't touch it, didn't carry it, somebody else stuck the piece of nevela down his throat, that itself would make the person impure with the impurity of nevela.
Well, that was quick. All right, matters of Mashiach. All right, in this world, a person gathers figs on Shabbos, the fig says nothing. But in Olam Haba, in the time to come, if a person goes to gather a fig on Shabbos, the fig will cry out, "It's Shabbos today!" When Mashiach comes, not only we will understand that the godly matters, but the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, like the waters cover the seas. This requires that even worldly matters, such as one's personal mundane affairs, be permeated with a godly awareness. We have to come to see how Torah and godliness are relevant to every aspect of our lives, even now. It's true. All right, our PSAs. I'm going to go through quick. Text the word food. Every single day in Rockland County, it's tomcheshabbos.org. In Lakewood, it's tomche.org. In Chicago, it's breakfastwithelli.live/Chicago Food Bank, and our master list at breakfastwithelli.live/Soup Kitchens. achiezer.org. Available at 516-791-4444 to provide for all of your urgent needs. And Hatzalah EMS, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in your neighborhood. If you don't yet have Hatzalah, go to their website, hatzalah.org, or contact me and we'll make sure you get one started. Miss Oskim in times of bereavement is there to help you out. 718-854-4548, 718-854-4548, and Just One Shabbos, helping bring youth back to the beauty of keeping Shabbos. If you are, God forbid, the victim of or see a hate crime in progress, you need to call 911 immediately. All right? Shabbos and Yom Tov included. Let's get these criminals. And as I was just told by my friend Emmanuel, he went out without a mask.
Really much to
Guess
ask.
what?
Tie some fabric round your face. Oh, it's
Right.
the simplest
We're
of
wishing a
tasks.
refuah
At
shalema.
the gym, at
Please,
the store.
please,
Don't treat
please.
it like such a
I don't know
chore.
what's going on in China. Something's going on in China, and people are getting sick again. So come on, before it gets to the United States and before it gets here really, really bad, let's be smart about this. All right. And please make sure you stay up to date with your vaccines, because that is super, super, super important in preventing hospitalizations and death. All right? All right. Bringing heaven down to earth. Until you see the good within a person, you're capable of helping them. If you rebuke your brother and he doesn't listen, you who are to blame. Words that come from the heart enter into the heart. Want to talk about that more? Come to me on any of our social media platforms at Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Spotify, Telegram, Twitter, WhatsApp, or at theactorsrabbi.com, where you can also sign up for life coaching services should you need them. All right? Let's say it after. Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam boirei nefashos rabois v'chesronan al kol ma sheborasa lachayos bohem nefesh kol chai baruch chai haolamim. Sorry about that. All right, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to my Patreon sponsors, Best Pro Riddle, Tarzan Orchids, Dina D Design, Dr. Susan Spitzer, you can become a sponsor by going to patreon.com/theactorsrabbi or breakfastwithelli.live/tipjar and become a sponsor today. All right, it is Thursday. It is, I didn't update this. There we go. All right. It is the 4th day of Chanukah. Wow. It updated by itself. That's very cool. All right. The 4th day of Chanukah. We light 5 candles tonight after 4:32 p.m. After 4:32 p.m. New York time. All right. We have some beautiful, beautiful music for you today. CHANUKAH from the New York Boys Choir, a brand new song from them. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Go out and do something nice, something good for someone today. In the words of Rabbi Isaac Hamler, have affection for a fellow. Hashem will have affection for you. Do a kindness for a fellow. Hashem will do a kindness for you. Befriend a fellow by drawing them close, and Hashem will draw you close to him. Have a wonderful, wonderful, glorious, wonderful Chag Sameach, happy Chanukah, and I will see you tomorrow. Be well. Bring someone to watch and listen with you.